The lights are off and away they go.
Extremely loose. He's managed to hold on and they get.
He missed the complete that. He's crazy stuff.
Side Freitas is on the grass on the infield floor. He slides through. He tags Richard.
The Itasha team was expected to be a strong one, and they did not disappoint with 2 wins out of 3 classes in the opening round. But the wide-open banking of Daytona contrasts starkly with the thin, winding turns and blind crests throughout Road Atlanta. Can this crack team of speedsters manage the traffic and the perils of this notoriously punishing sports car mecca? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 2 of the Autobahn Motorcar Group Sports Car Challenge, and you'll see it all live on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth covering the prototype and GT1 classes is Bill Soup Zahn. Next to him covering the GT3 class is Samuel Samich Ryman. Behind the scenes is our director Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Sam, this series has visited Road Atlanta multiple times now, so the drivers are very familiar with the dangers that come with it. But for our viewers that don't know the track, why don't you tell us about the circuit?
The term roller coaster gets used quite often when describing this circuit, Joe. I'd rather hit this circuit for the first time on iRacing than in the real world because you are going to crash when you turn your first lap on it. Fortunately, as you mentioned, these drivers are all too well familiar with this 2.54 mile 12 turn course, but that doesn't mean we're not going to see some drama over the next 60 minutes. If you're watching through an Oculus Rift or some other virtual reality device, you might want to grab a puke bag because we're about to go on this roller coaster ride with our GSRC lap guide.
Alright, we've got Kevin Brown behind the wheel of the GSRC BMW, so let's do a lap around Road Atlanta. Turn 1 is going to be a fast right-hand sweeper, but despite the fact that it heads uphill, it's easy to understeer wide, and if that happens, expect to slither off into the concrete barrier. Then right away, you've got turns 2 and 3. It's completely blind at the apex and prone to lap 1 pileups. Passing here is ill-advised. As soon as you're done with that, though, you plunge back downhill through the S's. We need a very specific line through here to set up for turn 5. This is another uphill corner, but watch out for the curb on the inside because grabbing too much of it will unsettle the car, and there's very little room on either side to save it. Now we're heading towards turn 6. There's plenty of banking in this corner, so it's faster than you'd expect it to be for a 90-degree right-hander. But before you know it, you've hit turn 7. This is easily the most critical corner on the track. As you can see, it dumps you onto the backstretch, which means your corner exit will be of the utmost importance. Botch it, and you'll be a sitting duck to the draft the whole way down the straight. Not only that, but at the end of this is the heavy braking zone for the chicane of 10A and 10B. The rest of the course is very technical, so expect most of the pass attempts to take place here. The tricky part is, the switchback means it's possible to defend from either side, so guys will be fighting hard to retain position. It'll take respect from both drivers to make it work. After that, we head back over the crest, fly through the final corner, and finish a lap around Road Atlanta. GSRC BMW, of course, being our GT3 car of choice, but today you see we've got the Ford out there as well as the Mercedes that they will be racing today for the GT3 class. However, there is the championship now to talk about because points are on the table as one of the Mercedes gets it wrong coming up over the hill. And we're going to go to Bill for him to fill us in on what the points are like after one round.
Sure enough. So, throughout my day, I'm constantly bombarded by things that remind me of this great Autobahn Motorcar Group Sports Car Challenge. Now, just today, I'm in the supermarket, and this lovely lady in one of those handicapped scooters runs into this small child and bounces the kid into this freestanding, like, rotating sunglass display, you know. The glasses go everywhere, the display goes, the kid goes everywhere. So she apologizes and that she didn't see the toddler. Now, we can apply that lesson of what you don't see is as important as what you do see when we take a look at these points. Now, keep in mind, with only one race in the book, the standings are going to pretty much depict the finishing order of the season opener. So, starting with the Driver Prototype Championship, Itasha Motorsports has Jason Girard up on top. Bob the Blade Tinsey and Ryan Bird sit second and third. Now, other than Itasha, Rainier Racing is the only team on this prototype overlay. Also on the team overlay, thanks in part to Jimbo Pfeiffer. Mark Schindel rounds out the graphic. But The important part is what we don't see, and that being John Big Cheese Ulmer and the Pac-Man John Paquin, who both had disappointing efforts at Daytona. Now, moving to the GT1 class, a pair of privateers sit on top, Paul, oh my darling, and Swirly, aka Wojciech Sviridovich. I'll have a drink, guys. I worked on that one too. Mama Jean, Daniel Benefield sits in third. Autobahn is the only team on this overlay showing up on the top 5 team on the top 5 overlay. This time, thanks in part to Billy Smith and Robbie Morrison, the third privateer shown fills out the top 5. But again, conspicuous by his absence is the defending champ, Stephen McGarvey of Talon Motorsports. Now, the last driver championship we're going to look at is the GT3. Itasha has a second driver on the top of the graphic, this time in the form of Patrick Fleming, but he is going to be out for quite a while recovering from a real-world car accident. Privateers continue to be generously sprinkled in. This time it's Laura Costa and Danny Kane. SRN puts its only driver in the top 5 position, that being Scott McGarvey. That is the little brother of Steven. And Renier, I think the big brother actually. And Renier Racing Bradley Haley is in 5th. So, who don't you see? Well, how about former champ Jim Carpool McGinnis nowhere to be found? Now let's take all that we saw and all that we did not see and look at the team championships. With Gerard and Fleming at the top of their class, no surprise to see Itasha well out in front. 2 drivers we did not see, that would be Daniel Galtry, 7th in the prototypes, Ryan Huff, 8th in the GT1s. Combine that with a 4th in the GT3 from Scott McGarvey, and that's enough to put SRN Motorsports in 2nd. Another new team, Renier Racing, manned by Jimbo Pfeiffer, James Wyckoff, and Bradley Haley have that final podium. 2 established teams, Autobahn West and TMC Carbon, hold down 4th and 5th. So, Joe, I can report that everybody in the supermarket fiasco was fine, as are all the drivers in this series, as there's plenty of time and a pair of dropped races to make up any poor starts that they might have had at the Daytona debut.
Well, I was glad you answered that, because that was going to be my first question. Was the kid okay after that? Well, we might have viewers watching us once again who might not be familiar with this series, so let's bring up the race details and give an overview of what is on the plate today. Of course, the cars that are going to be racing are split into 3 classes. Up at the top, you see the prototypes. Those are the HPD, single car class, and those. But then the other 2 classes have 2 different makes in each. In GT1, you've got the Aston Martins and the Corvettes versus one another, each having very different qualities. As well, in the GT3s, we have the Ford GT, GT3 version, and the Mercedes AMG fighting against one another, and also, once again, very different qualities. In fact, one is a mid-engine and one is a front-engine car, which obviously makes them drive quite differently and can play a big role in who chooses what car. This is going to be a 60-minute race out here today, so shorter race for this series. Longer races are 90 minutes, as we saw at Daytona. Open setup, so drivers do have to work to try and get the car to their liking. They can't just hop in and expect a fixed setup. The teams can help each other on that, obviously, if they've got someone who is experienced in that car, if you're not good with setting up the car. They have 1 fast repair, which, if you're not familiar with iRacing, the fast repair means if you get damage of any sort at any point in the race, you can go in and get a completely fresh car. Think of it like a spare car that they have waiting, can hop in and take off and continue on. However, they only have 1 of them, so if you take it early and you get damage later on, you've got to repair the damage and do what you can. The incident limit, 24 incidences, and incidents are basically anytime they go off track, spin, touch another car, or touch the wall and such. If they get 24 of those incident points, they are instantly disqualified, so the drivers have to keep it clean. The weather is dynamic, and the weather out there today actually is looking like 66 degrees, very cool out there in Georgia, and track temperature of 74. So very nice conditions out there, Sam, for these drivers to try and tackle such a difficult track with.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. I was eating a honey sandwich earlier and I was thinking, boy, this honey is sticky, and that made me think, I wonder how sticky the tyres are going to be on these cars in this AMGSC race. And of course, those tyres are going to be very sticky, lots of grip out there with those cool temperatures. That might mean we'll get to see some passing out here. However, not a whole lot of great overtaking zones. You can get stuff done into turn 1 or also turn 6. I believe that's the turn we're coming into here with David Stockrider, and also at the end of this back straight we're coming to, there's another passing zone, but they're not ideal passing zones. Traffic is going to be a very big concern today here at Road Atlanta.
And traffic doesn't just apply to being out on track, but Bill, the pit exit seems to suffer from traffic sometimes as well.
Yeah, not only pit exit, but pit entrance too. It's pit entrance is kind of blind, and if you happen to come up on a making a pass around a slower, maybe a back marker there, and you're trying to make a pass on the right hand side, you can actually run into the back of somebody who's making a pit stop. Then pit entrance jumps you right out before turn number 2, and that's one of those. Turn number 2 is hard enough as it is. In fact, this is the kind of track that my mom would really appreciate, because all of my life she's been telling me, sit up straight, have good posture. I did some practice laps in this car today, and I found myself sitting up straight because so many of these corners are blind. They're like hidden behind the hills, and I'm getting as tall as I can to try to see over, as if it actually would help. But yeah, pit entrance is going to be, pit exit is going to be tricky here today. So we'll hopefully good communication between all the drivers, they don't get into trouble.
Yeah, everyone's going to have their head on a swivel, no doubt. Now, the other thing that, I tend to note about this track, and I try to discuss, Sam, is it's almost split up into two halves, and with this being multi-class, it's really going to come into play into how that dynamic works out.
Yeah, I think that is one of the first impressions you get from this circuit. It's just, you get through the first half and you're like, boy, I've really got to be on my toes here. You get to the second half of a lap, which is basically what Christopher Sherburne is coming to here. Sherburne has just came out of the roller coaster portion of the circuit. He's been up, down, left, right. Now he's got some fairly simple turns here in the second half of a lap. You mentioned about how open it is here, Joe. You've got these two right-handers and then this long back straight, and there's really only 3 more actual turns between here and the finish line. Even though he's at the halfway point of the circuit, we're going to see a lot of passing going on down this long run into the chicane today.
This is definitely the place that you'll want to try and deal with that lap traffic of slower classes or faster classes if you're in the GT3 cars. And as Sam said, that first half with the S's has been known to really wreak havoc. And if you're in the HPDs, Bill, I have a feeling you're going to be desperately trying to get by before you get into that twisty little first half.
Yeah, and honestly, with the qualifying times of the top HPD drivers, with Ulmer, Tinsey, Williams, and Gerard all within basically a couple tenths of each other, I'm not sure if they can even be patient through that twisty section. Usually I would say just wait, but I think you're going to see some guys being pretty brave trying to leave the guys who are there chasing behind. One of the interesting things I like about this track is that final chicane, because even if you surrender the inside, which would be the driver left, because it's like a left-right, if you can hang in there close enough, you can hold off, even though the first part you may be on the outside, but on the second part of the chicane, you're on the inside, put you in a good spot for turn 1. Love this track. Always exciting.
And I'm taking a glance at the GT1s as well, Bill. One note that I had made about the last race was that Daniel Benefield had managed a podium despite having an extra pit stop. Everybody else took 2 stops and he took 3, which is highly unusual for their 90-minute races. So for him to do that well, I would expect that maybe he would be a force to be reckoned with. But looking at qualifying, he's way down, so I'm not really quite sure what to expect of him today.
Yeah, that might be a victim of car choice there. The Aston Martin might not be working for him well. I think to his advantage is the guys up in front, the big names, are all kind of newcomers. Karadine Boafia is new, and so is Wojciech Sviridovich. Hey, no drink on that one. I think I came close enough. And then, of course, you have Stephen McGarvey currently sitting in third, so he could be somebody to keep an eye on today.
Undoubtedly, I'm wondering if McGarvey can maybe find his form once again and get himself another win. He was so good last season in that GT1 class, but the influx of talent as drivers have swapped around during the silly season has made it very difficult. Well, as the laps are ticking down. The clock is ticking down, rather, on the last chance qualifying. We just about have our grid set. We're going to let everybody try and get that last lap in. But to explain to our viewers what we mean by last chance qualifying, this series splits up the qualifying into 4 parts, 3 parts for each class by themselves out there, HPDs, GT1s, and GT3s. And the last chance is for drivers who have real-world obligations or just simply elect to not try and qualify with their class and come out here at the end. That could be something that helps you with a slightly clearer track. It could be something that hurts you if you have different classes coming out. For example, you see a couple GT3 cars, if they have HPDs constantly coming through to try and pass them, that can make it harder to get a clean lap in, a nice fast lap in. Checkered flag is out and the clock is ticking down to finish up the session, so that should be pretty much everyone, I believe, having put in a lap. Let's go to our grid today here in the Autobahn Motorcar Group Sports Car Challenge. On the pole, it's going to be John Ulmer in the prototypes. Robert Tinsey on the outside of that front row. Going to be very tight with these guys. Top 4, you can, well, you can't see on the screen here, but the top 4 are within a tenth of each other, all in 103.9 range. David Williams is going to be starting in 3rd, and Jason Girard is going to be starting in 4th. All 4 of those guys have a good chance of taking home the win today. A little bit farther back at a 109.7 is Alex Simonik starting in 5th. Jimbo Pfeiffer will start on the outside of row 3 in 6th. Dino Topic is going to start in 7th. Following him, it's going to be Mark Schindel in 8th, and then Ryan Bird in 9th. Rounding out the top 10, it'll be Elliot Mimi. Then we move back to the 11th position, where it'll be Mark Wilson starting back there with a 110.8. Alan Hasebeck, hopping over from what we're used to seeing him a long time ago in the Pack Majors. He is starting in the 12th position. Daniel Gralty will be in 13th. Tim McLeish in 14th. And 15 prototypes. Big field out there for these guys today. Will be Sean Reese. Bill?
Yeah, and I got 18 in the GT1, so I can't wax rhapsodic here on these guys. Got to get through them. On the pole for me, Karadine Boafia. Now, a couple newcomers here, Wojciech Swirovic in outside of him. Then the next 2 guys going to be Stephen McGarvey and Matt Quinn, a couple veterans. Look at the depth of talent in here. Paul Darling and Troy Schuster sit in the 3rd row of the GT1s, right ahead of Billy Smith and Leif Peterson. Kevin Santana, who has left the prototypes this season, comes down in the GT1, sitting back there 24th overall. Daniel Benefield, who did that great run last time, up to 25th position. Clark Archer and Paul Lindsay. Ryan Huff and Brandon Postma round out the top 30. I got a few more. Robbie Morrison, David Sockrider back in 31st and 30 and 31st. Carter Gundinger, and then Armando Edwards. And then my last driver in the GT1s is Matt Owens.
Yeah, that brings us to the GT3 field, 35th overall, but first in class is Benjamin Hackerson, ahead of Lauro Costa, who was run-up at Daytona. Bradley Haley and Scott McGarvey will be starting in 3rd and 4th respectively, with Sheldon Rosenbaum rounding out the top 5. McGarvey to this point has been the only Ford GT there. Then we have two Ford GTs in 6th and 7th, Dave Hill and Robert Jackman, ahead of a bunch more Mercedes, definitely more Mercedes here in GT3 today. Chandler Rubeck, Jim McInnes, Ross Booth, David Tejeda, and Sheldon Relushin. The last Ford GT on the grid is Christopher Sherburne. He's ahead of the 2 Mercedes of Miguel Maya and Pablo Silveria. You do see the name Mark Kudrowski there rounding out the field, however he's not in the server, so looks like we've got 49 cars about to start this race.
Whew. So 49 cars over 2.5 miles. Bill, even if it wasn't so close up at the top, it'd be very difficult to pick who'd be able to come away with this, because I expect a lot of excitement.
Yeah, I like David Williams. I think he's doing the prototypes on my pick now. He's sitting 3rd right now, and my pick in the GT1s is the veteran, or at least veteran from last season, Stephen McGarvey. Takes a little bit. You got to earn your stripes here, and I'm not sure Boafia and Swirovic, take a drink. Swirovic is going to be able to hold off the pressure from that. Sam, who do you like down there in your GT3s?
It's hard to say. I want to go with either Benjamin Hackerson or Bradley Haley because they're starting 1st and 3rd in class respectively, and they were 2nd and 1st fastest in practice. Haley was the class fastest in practice. So I'm going to go by Haley on the basis that practice usually you get a better idea of who's better over the long run. So let's see what Bradley Haley can do from third on the grid there. Although last time out at Daytona, the GT3 class was definitely the most competitive class. However, with Hackerson having 0.4 of a second over Lauro Costa second on the grid, I wonder if Hackerson will build up an early lead here.
And honestly, Sam, I feel like if we did see Bradley manage to win, that's going to be a feel-good story. We've watched him do so well in the Pacific Majors without getting a win, and we saw him come out here swinging with some great performances. So I'd love to see him be able to get up and notch up a first win this season. Pace car is now heading towards turn 6 as he leads the HPDs and the roof pace car out there. iRacing having recently implemented that new machine up at the front, replacing the Mustang on the roadside.
Traffic is going to be enormously tough.
I think one of the big problems you have here, Joe, is we were talking about that prototype field side. Well, that's really the where the big difference in speed comes from. GT1 versus GT3 on track isn't too bad. But when you have as many prototypes as we do out here today on a pretty tight circuit, we'll have to wait and see what that results in later on.
And we were speaking to Dino Topic before the race, and he was very concerned about the top-end speed of these HPDs versus the GT1s anyway. So when these HPDs get to this long back stretch, they might actually struggle a little bit to try and overtake the GT1 cars since they are just so quick in a straight line. And that could cause some problems of its own. So, as the pace car comes through this last chicane, last good overtaking spot on the track, he's going to peel away, and John Ulmer is going to have control of the field. To his outside, Tinsley, longtime nemesis in this series, and a great jump for John Ulmer as the green flag waves, and we get racing for 60 minutes as we had a car off on the inside of the wall. We're going to find out who that is. Oh, and two of our leaders come together. We've got more cars piling into them. Tinsley was involved with that. And I believe possibly Williams was involved with that as they continue on. Let's go to the GT1 start.
From the second position, Switovich has gone ahead of Boakia now. He's taken over the lead. Everybody has cleared out. All those prototypes are gone. So the clear trap, Matt Quinn, Stephen McGarvey, and Paul Darling file in. Sam, what do you got?
Hackerson jumps out to an early lead in GT3. It's a much cleaner start in this class, as you mentioned, Bill. Fortunately, those prototypes got off the track before these guys came along. Costa in second, Haley in third.
Let's go to that replay. Now, this is significant, Bill, because remember how we talked about how close that qualifying was? Well, I don't think Ulmer has to worry about that anymore, because the three that got caught up with it, as well as others, is Gerard, Williams, and Tinsley, the three closest to him in time.
Yeah, and it was just into corner one. It's just there was room there. It looked like Tinsley turned down, and you pick the way you do it. Then everybody piled in. Some of the other drivers who got in there, Hacebeck was in. It's good to see him in there also. Jason Gerard in that mess. Sean Reese, my goodness.
Let's go on board Ryan Bird on this start. Here he is towards the back of the pack here. Actually more like maybe in the middle of the pack. So he happens right in front of him. Oh, just nowhere to go. That was Williams who came across his bow and unfortunately took off the front splitter.
The good news is Bird is already rolling out of the pits. These guys get free repairs, of course, but it's going to push him back down the order.
And unfortunately for him, he is stuck in the middle of the GT1 class. Both himself and it looks like another HPD who's trying to squeeze around Clark Archer. That was Dino Topic, who almost caused some trouble very early on for Clark Archer.
Well, Topic was one of the cars in the pits with damage.
All right, a lot of switching around up at the top, so let's get you up to date on what the order is for the prototypes, and we'll go to the other classes. Ulmer leads. Simonic has inherited second place. Jimbo Pfeiffer moves up to the podium. Mark Schindel in fourth, and Elliot Mimi rounds out our top five. Let's go to the GT1s.
You know what? And they are running in the exact order that they qualified, with the exception of Svidovic, who made the pass on Bolafia. So Svidovic out in front, Bolafia in second, then Quinn, McGarvey, and Darling, your top 5. Sam?
Yeah, the GT3 drivers had enough of a crazy race at Daytona, so they're keeping it calm in the early stages here at Road Atlanta. Once again, Hackerson still leads Costa. There is a bit of a train going on behind Bradley Haley in third place, but for now they all remain in single file. 4 Mercedes leading the front of the GT3 field.
Mercedes seems to be the car to beat here today. Whoa, as we had a car off just in the background, not sure. I think that was Chandler Rubeck. Gonna double check to make sure I've got the right car. Yes, it was. Doing a great job of staying calm and bringing it back from the grass, because Sam, boy, going off at turn 12 is not always the nicest of propositions.
Yeah, no, and there's one GT1 car that's been having trouble out there. Clark Archie's dropped to the back of a GT1 field, and I wonder if he's actually going to end up mixing up with the GT3 cars here. He's had a couple of off courses, but let's go to the other end of GT1.
Yeah, there's a pass for the lead. Kiridan Boafia slips ahead of Vocek down at the chicane. Behind them, they've got some prototypes starting to come through these GT1s, still very tight up in the top 5. That car coming through is Matt Quinn. Or no, excuse me, that's Ryan Bird.
Ryan Bird, yeah.
Bird and Topic, who are actually fighting for position at the same time. They're trying to squeeze through these guys. These are the leaders that they're now coming up upon. Sliding in, single file down through turn 3.
Now these are a couple of the prototypes who got into trouble. These aren't your leaders in the prototypes coming through yet.
We'll go to that once they start to catch lap traffic. We like to try and watch them weave through there. Bird now coming by the leader of Kiridan. Almost gets an attack there from Topic, but can't find an opportunity down into turn 6. Now they've got to focus on their exit as they get on the power down the backstretch. And folks, we still have 54 minutes of these 3 classes duking it out. So we look back at our leaders once again. Kiridan starting to stretch away. Vocek under threat from Matt Quinn. Third place car not able to do anything down the chicane as they accordion back together. Stephen McGarvey with a watchful eye just behind, and Paul Darling rounding out that top 5.
And we should mention that we haven't talked about him, but certainly somebody to keep an eye on. Billy Smith is in there as well, right behind Darling.
Now Smith is another one that surprised me a little bit. I expected to see him a little bit higher up. He was looking pretty good at Daytona, but also ran into some trouble. Whoa, when something happened to Topic, he's off.
Oh, he got
takes
into
a tow.
yeah. Ryan Bird, we saw them working their way through. They got together. They were side by side for the longest time. Then they're getting into the twisty section. Hard to do side by side through here. And Topic, I think he thought he had him cleared, and he didn't. But my call is he came across the nose of Bird. Or the beak. I would guess it would be the beak of Bird.
I was going to say, I don't think the turn 4 is 2 Cialis bathtubs wide, unfortunately for them.
No, it is not.
This is not the start that Topic was wanting. Bird is able to continue on. You can see he's by himself now.
Especially, Joe, with the big names having trouble. I mean, it's an opportunity for them to pick up some spots.
Well, speaking of big names, Robert Tinsey is still holding on to 4th, and he's only 2 seconds back from Jimbo Pfeiffer. I don't know that he's out of this yet. Here you can see he's working his way through some lap traffic. That's Ross Booth that he just went by. In fact, have our leaders already caught the GT3 class here?
Yeah, I was going to say, Sam, it looks like Ulmer's coming up on the back of Costa now. Boy, he's making short work of this group.
Yeah, I think a bigger concern for the GT3 guys, once again, is the fact that they're quite close to the drivers who are just struggling a bit to get to grips in GT1 in front of them.
And 3rd place, what's going on here? Pfeiffer is overtaken. That was quick. Where did Tinsey come from? He was 2 seconds back. Was that traffic?
Yep, it was. That's why they call him Bob the Blade. He
Wow.
just, if you get a shot at this one, oh, Oh my goodness! It was Jimbo Pfeiffer being what I would call sane, and then the Bob the Blade, just look at him go. He just takes him
one after another. He knows where to place the car, and that moves him up into a podium spot despite early trouble. Now it's going to be a lot harder going for him, 6 seconds behind P2 of Alex Simonik, who is just cruising around at this point.
We saw Tinsey just put a lap on Bradley Haley there. A little while ago we saw Haley holding up a train of cars while one car did get by him. Sheldon Rosenbaum has moved up to third in the GT3 class.
Here we see Rosenbaum, privateer this season, not affiliated with the team. He's having to deal with prototypes himself as Pfeiffer slips on by on the front stretch. Hackison, meanwhile, still leading up at the top of the GT3s. 10 minutes into this race. They are expecting one pit stop. They have a limited fuel cell. It means they can go just over half an hour. We haven't checked in on GT1 in a while, so let's jump over to Kiridan Buafia.
Yeah, and actually, what we're going to do is maybe we can pick up the Williams in the prototype coming through right now. I believe he's a little bit behind these guys, if I have my timing and scoring right. There he comes. So Williams just going around. Now he's got the second place driver ahead of him. That's Swirly. He's going to make short work of Swirly here, I hope. There you go. And I was a little bit behind time there, but let's see if we can get caught up to where we are. Swirly's been past him now. He's long gone. Yeah, he's got them all done. Sorry about that.
It happens sometimes, but David Williams, though, is definitely not looking like he is in contention for the win. He is a lap down from our overall leader all by himself. He's going to have to... Oh.
I'm sorry, this is the GT1s were able to let those guys go through. They are still running the top four. Well, actually, top five. Those to him.
Yeah, those guys have been racing very close since the drop of the green. It's almost looked like more like a Daytona race where everyone's just kind of stuck in the draft and not able to get away from one another. Tell you what, you talked about Kiridan not having the experience that some of these other guys do, but he's looking very cool right now despite having this many cars breathing down his neck.
Let's look at John Ulmer, because Sam, he's coming your way. He's coming up on back here of Ryan Huff and Daniel Benfield.
Yeah,
Benfield's in the GT1, yeah. Sorry about that. Those are my guys, and he comes up and he gets one done.
He's going to split them. That's Benefield and Huff that you mentioned. He's able to use the downforce of that HPD to get inside of Benefield, who tries to stay too wide. That's going to hurt him. Here's going to be an opportunity for Huff. Huff has the car of Simonik coming up behind him now, who thankfully stays behind. Cannot try and go too wide through the S's without expecting some sort of dramas to happen. Now he can try and get by, and Huff, unfortunately, was not able to capitalize. One thing we'll notice, though, Bill, I don't know if you've been eyeing the outside of the racing line. There is a lot of marbles left over from practice and qualifying.
Yeah, and that's really tough on the prototypes because they're using all parts of the track to get through the slower classes. So they're out there in the dirty part. So far, so good.
The more these guys avoid that, the more it's just going to build up and get dirtier and make it tougher to go out there. So at some point, someone's going to have to go to the outside, or it's going to be single file in every single corner for most of this race as we ride on board with Quinn, third place in the GT1s. He's got Stephen McGarvey off camera just behind him, very close, but Quinn is also focused up ahead on second place Wojciech. Swirly also holding a very cool head. Looked very strong in that first round. He's able to take a second place at Daytona, showing that he is very fast in these GT1 machines.
Really a six-car battle. Goes all the way back to Billy Smith, who's certainly still in the hunt. Let's look at a battle for third. Let's go McGarvey here. I think he's being challenged a little bit, making a run. I thought McGarvey might make a run on Quinn, but I guess not. Quinn just, well, let's see what happens here.
He's holding tight
Quinn
behind him.
taking that defensive line, yeah. Too early to force the issue, I think, is what Steven's thinking.
Garvey tends to be a smart driver, and he saw what was happening too. Quinn went all the way back to the line, and Garvey didn't even get close to running into the rear of him. So great driving by both of those guys out there. As we continue to watch this, though, we do have Dino Topic fresh out of the car. Unfortunately for him, after 2 incidents have removed him from the race. Let's see if we can give a quick chat while we continue to watch this great battle out there. Dino, we're sad to be talking to you so early. Can you give us some insight into that first incident and then as well that second one that forced you to take a tow?
Oh, I have no idea. I think it was just the marbles because I was on the inside line. I went over the curb, I lifted, and then the car, like the rear just started going. It's like, I'm not gonna like try to steer away because I'll just hit somebody. Decided to take the wall and the fast repair. But the second one, I guess we were racing a little too hard too early, and just called it quits. It's not gonna be worth the damage car.
Well, again, commiserations, and hopefully we can see you back a little bit stronger at the next round in Road America.
Yeah, it's, we'll see what happens.
All right, that was Dino Topic. Fortunately, is going to finish at the back of the HPDs today. Meanwhile, we're still on board with our leader, Kiradine Boafia. John Ulmer was able to work his way through there, Bill.
Ulmer gets that done. So you have the leaders there in the prototype and in the GT1s together. So Ulmer has cleared all of those guys. And he has some clean track ahead of him now, so John can relax a bit.
Alex Simonik is having to do the same task as well. He's trying to go past the car of Matt Quinn, who finally gets by him. Has to really stick his nose in, coming down into the S's, but makes it work. And now he's going to get much clearer track to go past the car of Swarudovic. Does so successfully.
Could have a battle for third shaping up in the not too distant future in GT3. We were talking high praises of Bradley Haley before this race started, but he hasn't had a good start to the race. He dropped back to 4th. However, Sheldon Rosenbaum completely overshot the chicane last time around, and that's allowed Haley to close back up on him as the HPD of Sean Rees goes by, and once again Rosenbaum misses his marks. Haley is back there. There could be another switch for third in the not too distant future in GT3, and I'm keeping my eye on this in this class for the fact that this is really the only battle we've had going on up front in GT3 all race long. It's been a very calm race for these guys in the opening stages.
Yeah, I would expect a draft battle to be in this class instead of the GT1s, since these guys aren't as engine dependent as the GT1s with all that power under the hood. Meanwhile, we're watching this battle continue. Haley trying to get the grip off of turn 7 and just can't get close enough to Rosenbaum. The draft is reeling him in, but I don't know if he's going to have enough time. They've got David Williams coming up on him. He does peek to the inside. Are they going to go 3 wide? Williams puts wheels onto the grass to try and get by them. Still side by side. Bradley Haley to the inside of the first part of the chicane. He clears him by the second. So move Bradley Haley into the podium.
Alright, this is more where we expected to see Haley. Somewhere I didn't expect to see cars yet, as in pit road, looks like Brandon Postmer is making a scheduled stop in his GT1 car quite early. I wonder if he can make it to the end from here.
We also saw some smoke on the front stretch. I'm not sure what that came from. I'm going to see if I can try and track that down, Sam. Oh, it sounds like Quinn had a big problem. So from our GT1 class, see the replay here. Oh no, this might have been something separate, or we need to wait a little bit to figure out. Oh, this was in the chicane. This is separate from what I was seeing on the front stretch, but Quinn losing positions. Oh, getting back on the track in front of that HPD. I'm sure he didn't appreciate that.
Sounds like we've got another scheduled stop. Pablo Silveira, who started toward the back of the GT3 field.
Yeah, well, Pablo had just spun it, so I think he might have been coming in for a repair. He had a self-spin.
Oh, we got a battle for third over in GT1s. It was Darling and McGarvey, and they've got lots of traffic behind them waiting patiently to get through. That's going to be Elliot Mimi slipping by first.
Yeah, Mimi has done a great job of being patient back there. Well, now he's going to have to weave his way. Is there room for you to tuck in there, Elliot?
He's a little trepidatious.
There he goes. And that's going to open the door, maybe.
Ooh, some extreme trust there. Stephen McGarvey managing to keep out of him, and at the same time holding Paul Darling off, who had a peek to the inside. They've got Mark Schindel now coming up behind him. May be able to get by both of them before the first corner, as I don't think Darling is going to want him to split them, and yes, he does. He gets by both cars.
Contact, and Bradley Haley is off. We saw, and it wasn't contact, my apologies. He just spun it from turn 3, exiting the S's of the racetrack, gets back out on track. He did make light contact with the wall. We'll have to see if that knocked his toe out at all, but he's definitely lost a lot of track position.
We've seen this before. Turn 5 claims yet another victim. That compression and then crest at the top of the hill, making it difficult, even with all the aids these GT3 drivers enjoy. So Haley, who moved himself onto the podium with a brilliant move, has instead slipped down to 10th, and he's got a lot of work to do. Before we get pit stops going, let's go through the order, get you up to date. It's been a while since we went through the top 5 of each. John Ulmer still leading the way, but not as much of a gap as I expected. Only 4 seconds between himself and Simonic, who holds down P2. Robert Tinsey, we saw him move up into 3rd, and he hasn't made a whole lot of inroads on Alex. He still sits there on the podium. Jimbo Pfeiffer, not far behind Robert. He is in 4th, and then rounding out the top 5 in the prototypes, Bill, is Elliot Mimi.
What once was a great nose-to-tail train going on here has been broken up by the slew of prototypes that have come through. It's Caradine Boafia out in front. He's now got about a 2-second lead back to Swirly. No, let me correct myself. It looks like McGarvey has just got around. Let's see what happens. Something happened?
No.
Oh, did I miss it? Okay. Sorry.
Vocek is still holding it down.
Scared myself there. Okay, so Vocek running in 2nd. Then you got to go about 3 seconds back to McGarvey. And he's got a... That's probably our best battle now of all those guys, as McGarvey has a little bit of a lead. As we've watched the prototypes work through there, McGarvey has a bit of a lead over who would be Darling, who's running in 4th position now. And then we go all the way back to Billy Smith, running 5th overall. Sam?
Yeah, up in GT3, Benjamin Haxon has been absolutely dominating this race, and Lauro Costa has been running in 2nd place pretty much all race long as well, which is also where he finished at Daytona. 3rd position now after Haley's spin is Sheldon Rosenbaum. He's still missing some of his marks though, so we'll keep an eye on him. Then we get to the first, and Hackerson, the race leader, is off in GT3, comes back on course, has such a big lead. He remains in front of Costa, but he's got the prototype coming down the inside, and this brings Costa back to him. So the top 2 in GT3 are close, and we'll get a replay on that here. Meanwhile, rounding out the top 5 in GT3 are Scott McGarvey and Brandon Postman.
It was once again turn 5, almost exactly what we saw with Haley, except in this case, Hackison did a beautiful job saving that thing off the barriers, keeping it straight. Nicely done.
I wonder if this could be the tyres going away, because of course we've seen Haley spin, we saw Hackerson almost throw it away, and then of course I've been mentioning about Rosenbaum in 3rd place, has been looking scrappy the past couple of laps. I wonder if the GT3s could be struggling with some tyre wear.
I wonder if the evolution of the track is maybe having something to do with it as well, Sam, because even though they've had all of practice to get used to the grip levels, they've now got all 49 cars pounding around here at once. We don't often see the track overheating on the roadside, but could it be possible?
It definitely could be. Either way, I'm sorry, there was almost contact in traffic back in the S's, but they all got through okay. Either way, whatever has happened to the track, Lauro Costa doesn't seem to be affecting, because he's right there on the back of Hackson. I haven't really seen Costa make any mistakes today. He finished 2nd last time out. Let's see if he can get the W this time.
Brazilian's got the draft down the backstretch. He's a little bit far back. There's about 4 tenths between himself and Hackison. Starts to get sucked in ever so slightly, but as they run out of track and hit the brakes down for the chicane, they're going to stay in position. Hackison first, Costa second.
You see the time in the top left corner of your screen. They are approaching the halfway point of this race, so a pit stop could come at any moment if either of these feel that they're being pressured or held up too much by the other.
In fact, I would say that we're probably well within the pit window. This track isn't very thirsty compared to Daytona, at least, so they should have a little more leeway as to where they could be pitting. The long backstretch is about the only part where they're going to be on the power for a significant amount of time. Meanwhile, sounds like we got a battle in third place for GT1.
Yeah, well, Darling was stalking McGarvey, so Darling now has moved up to third spot. He's picked up 5 spots overall. Nice shot from him, up to third. He got around McGarvey. Now, I don't think McGarvey's going to give up here. I think he's got the pace to stay with it.
I was just about to say, he was holding on to him, but that could have been traffic that was allowing him to stay right up there. We'll get a better idea as the race progresses on.
Let's drop back to Billy Smith. He's a couple cars back now. He's in traffic right now. And in fact, as the traffic are pulling out of the way, Billy Smith is in a battle. Remember, Quinn had issues. Quinn's right behind him. He would like to get that spot back. So that's Billy Smith and Quinn, nose to tail. That's a battle. What would that be for 5th position, I guess, in class? And what's happening, Joe, is all the classes are mixed up now. And it's the GT1s are trying to go through the slower GT3s, meanwhile trying to stay out of the way of the prototypes.
A little bit of pass attempts maybe we're going to see here from Quinn. Looks to the inside of Smith. Oh, they make contact.
Easy. And
Quinn holding onto it. We're going to watch a replay, and after that, we need to go to a battle for 7th in the prototypes.
Just look at this. Quinn gets it, and then he just can't keep that inside line. They make a little bit of contact. Actually, they contacted before they even got to the corner turn in there, so I think Quinn was trying to get as much angle as he could in there.
Man, I think he actually started to lose the rear end, but we switched to this battle in the prototypes. Jason Girard catching up to Daniel Gralti. This is for 7th position. Remember, Girard had big problems at the start in the very first corner. So he's trying to race back through the field here.
It might be worth noting that the GT3 car they just went by of Brandon Postman has now moved up into 3rd place after Sheldon Rosenbaum has dropped back to 4th. We continue on this battle for 7th in prototypes.
I'm surprised to see Girard this circumspect, unless maybe he's got some damage he's dealing with, Bill.
Yeah, I think he had that problem lap 1. The car's not feeling good probably since then. I think Tinsey probably came out the best of all those guys that were involved in that.
5th also in the prototypes, up for a battle. Mark Schindel on the back of Elliot Mimi. It's within half a second. They've just gotten by the car of Matt Owens in the GT3 class, so they're clear of him, and they've got fully clear track for a long ways up to Armando Edwards.
Great camaraderie in the forums. Elliott made a mistake in the opening race at Daytona, said, "I'm so sorry, guys. Maybe I shouldn't be racing here." The whole forum united said, "Come on, we all made mistakes. Come and race with us." So good to see Elliott back here, having a nice run right now.
Elliot Mimi, definitely not a new face here on GSRC. Watched him race in a number of various series. It's now they're going to catch Armando. Probably Armando. My apologies if I've been saying that wrong. But look at that. The traffic really helping out with Elliot Mimi there, putting a big gap on Schindel.
Now, Schindel qualified ahead of Mimi, but I think Schindel had to brake in that early incident. That's how Mimi got around him. So Schindel should have the
Daniel
pace.
Gralti is off. I'm sorry to interrupt. That's going to give a position to Girard. Not sure if there was contact in this. Let's look at the replay.
No, but you sure did scare Girard, though.
Ooh, there might have been netcode here. Let's see if we can get a track review or something.
Oh, maybe, it's maybe netcode as Girard went by. He didn't put Gralti. Gralti was out on the grass on his own, but I think maybe a little netcode. Watch the car go around him as Gralti starts to come back in. See, now that's all Gralty, but then as he starts to come back in, I think he got turned by some netcode.
I don't really blame Gerard on that one. It's just things happen so fast in these cars around those quick corners. Well, he's managed to survive another incident and get up into 7th now. You know, this makes me wonder, now that we've realized that it seems like Gerard might be struggling due to damage. I wonder if Tinsey is suffering the same thing. We're used to seeing him very fast.
Yeah.
And him not able to catch Alex Simonek makes it a little suspicious.
Not only not able to catch him, but actually had been losing ground to him about a second, maybe over the last 10 minutes. So, yeah, he did a good job putting the car in 3rd. I think he'll be happy with 3rd based on what happened to him early on.
I know we're watching prototypes a lot, but Schindel is still on top of Mimi for this 5th position. They had a lap car in front of them. Could have given an opportunity. That's Robbie Morrison in a GT1 Corvette, who pulls off to the left side and lets them through. Schindel gets a big whiff of the draft. Oh, and Carolina Boafia is off. GT1 leader is off in turn 3.
That was David Williams behind him, I think, just scared him into missing his braking point.
Went off into the marbles, you see, coming around 3. And thankfully, everybody who was coming up on him saw what was happening. Boafia had the sense to back out of that curb, although then he gets back on the curb there. Whew. That was a bit of a risky rejoin.
Looks like pit road is getting busy, guys. Jimbo Fife and David Sockrider are in.
All right, at exactly halfway, we're seeing pit stops start to kick off here with our prototype driver and our GT1 driver.
Meanwhile, the guy on the move in GT3 has been Brandon Postma. He has absolutely ran Lauro Costa down and is now looking for 2nd place on him.
As our leader is in the prototypes. John Ulmer has decided to come in. Now our new leader now is Swidovic, and he is yet to come in.
Yeah, my apologies. I've been talking about Postma as a GT3 car. Of course, he's a GT1 car.
Kind of helps him run him down.
But he was wasn't he GT3 forever? So I mean, that's what you get for changing classes.
All right, we're watching Mimi, but he is taking the lead away now that he hasn't pitted. Nice little feather into his cap.
Pray for rain.
Oh, but look at him trying to overtake that lap traffic. That was a little risky. We cut away from it, but he managed to get through there safe, as Ulmer will exit in 3rd place, so he didn't lose too much in his pit stops. Daniel Gralti also went by into 2nd. Simonek exits after his stop in 4th.
I think the pizza maker put on some sticky cheese today. I think we're in good shape.
I'm not saying anything because I believe in the commentator's curse, and I'm staying quiet about that.
John Ulmer now having a good race. Running in 3rd overall. Simonek and Tinsey still up to 5th.
GT1's starting to take their stops. Here we see Wojciech Srudovic coming in for his after he overtook from a problem from Carradine Boafia.
Schuster in, McGarvey in, Matt Quinn in. It's a pit party for the GT1 guys. So Darling is going to stay out, and we've seen Paul do that before. Omai has a light foot, and he's out there, but he's going to need to come in next time. We'll see how they cycle out.
You see Darling racing for WFO. Oh, and that was a car off. That's Sean Reese. Let's see. He might have gotten some help here. Sheldon Rosenbaum. Oh, no. It looks like... Oh, wow. This is a hard hit, actually. Here you're going to see on the replay Reese go off, and that's Rosenbaum just T-boning him. Let's go on board Rosenbaum. You'd think that usually you have time to react in these situations, but you're going to see a better glimpse on board to see exactly what he had to deal with here. There's the HPD going off, and at that point has about a second or so to really figure out where that HPD is going to go, and unfortunately he swung back right in front of him. Significant damage to the front of that Mercedes.
Yeah, Rosenbaum came right into the pits from that. The problem is of course, I've been mentioning him being back and forth because I thought the GT1 car was battling him. He was actually in third, holding off the Ford GT of McGarvey for position, so he might actually lose that podium spot to McGarvey now.
Now, speaking of McGarvey, let me go to his brother, Stephen McGarvey, who has jumped Switovich in the pit stops. Remember, Switovich was our leader. So he's come in. McGarvey has now in front of him and could be the overall leader once the pits are done.
Let's go to Paul Darling because he has now come out in the lead of GT1. He has jumped Kiradine Boafia, did he not?
Well, Boafia had that spin, so he had dropped farther back. So they've all made their stops. I'm not sure if Boafia, how he was able to do that. There were either some really bad stops. So here's how it's played out. Darling is out in front right now, and Boafia is right in the hunt. They've got a back markers. They're trying to get around David Tejeda right now. So that's the battle for the lead. But then McGarvey is right behind him. I think McGarvey might be in the best spot. Well, Darling's probably in a pretty good spot. Well, let me see. Wait a minute. We got, there's Stephen McGarvey back there. That's Scott McGarvey in the mix. Stephen McGarvey has got ahead of our other leader. Who was it? It was Swirly.
Yeah.
Oh, we're thinking that Swirly took tires. Swirly was in his box for 37 seconds. This compares to 21 seconds for all the other guys. Ooh, for a 60-minute race, I just don't see tires working out.
We'll find out in about 25 more minutes.
But here's a guy, Troy Schuster, also took tires, and there's a guy who would know. Here's a veteran, so we'll see.
They do have some very high impact corners. Turn 1 and this corner right here, turn 12 that Troy is going through. Very fast corner. Turn 1 he's going to go through. A lot of compression around here as it starts to go uphill. And then down through the S's and into turn 5. So maybe it's hard enough on these tires, Bill, that it actually pays off.
Boy, I wouldn't question anybody, especially Schuster, who knows it. I mean, he's been here for a long time. He knows what he's doing. Hey, let's point out that Ulmer's lead is only 2.2 seconds and dropping. It's down to 2 seconds now over Simonic, but it could be traffic. Now it's under 2 seconds. So
Is this maybe an Ulmer who is playing as safe a race as possible? He qualified on the pole. He saw his main competition taken out at the very first corner. I wonder if in his head he's thinking, you know what, I don't need to take risks. All I need to do is keep a decent pace and take this thing to the end now.
24 minutes, just mind the gap and keep the cheese on the pizza.
We actually got very loose coming through the corner. We're riding on board with Simonic. We didn't see Ulmer getting loose behind the car of Sherburne.
That lead is now down to 1.4 seconds. Simonic is coming.
Did Ulmer get some damage somewhere that we didn't see?
Someone's got a lot of damage. One of the top prototype drivers, Mark Schindel, has lost the front end of his machine coming out of turn 1, comes back on the track with traffic coming by. That car's not looking pretty.
And he had some help. That was Elliot Mimi. But once again, just like a lot of other incidents we've seen, you saw he started to lose it first, and then Mimi had to react and had nowhere to go, and that's why he got into him. Here we're watching on board with Elliot. Rear of that HPD just starts to want to swap ends. Quick hands by Elliot.
Meanwhile, those who have been watching our timing and scoring and paying attention to GT3 would have seen Costa being in the lead. Well, that's because Costad's still yet to pit. He's finally made his stop. He's coming out of a pit right alongside Hackerson. This is a battle for the lead in GT3, and Costa is in front.
Strategy playing in the hands of the Brazilian. We saw him doing very well in GT1 last season. He's showing he is no slouch in the slower class as well, but he's going to have to fight off Hackerson. What can he do? And Hackerson, very loose, up over the hill, manages to hold on to it. I thought he was going to be able to get into the draft on the backstretch, but I don't know if that's going to be a possibility now.
So that's the top 2 in GT3. Third, and if he's not third now, he will be once all the stops have cycled through, is Scott McGarvey. So finally we have a Ford GT on the podium. Robert Jackman has actually moved up to 4th in the Ford GT. He had been running 5th. And Sheldon Rosenbaum has dropped back to 5th place in his Mercedes.
Despite some major incidents and some contact between cars that we've seen out there, I feel like we've seen some enormous car control from these drivers, Hackison especially just moments ago. I am impressed.
I got something really interesting. 5th position in the prototypes. Mimi just worked his way around Jason Girard, which you would say, well, okay, Mimi's having a good race, but Mimi has no front end on his car. Okay, well, it's looking good. You know, on my screen it looks a lot worse, so maybe it's been repaired. I see no nose cone on the front for me.
Yeah, I think that's iRacing needing to update. He hasn't been able to drop Girard quite yet, and he's dealing with traffic. He's got Kiradine Boafia in the GT1. He's not willing to risk it down into the S's. This is going to allow Girard to close up.
Now we'll stay on this for a minute because this is Boafia. Now right in front is Darling. Darling had a horrible exit through 5. So they're coming up on the leader of the GT1s.
And this is for position between these 2 GT1 cars. That's Paul Darling, P1 there. So that was actually, I would say that Boafia gave up a lot right there, letting those guys through.
So here goes Girard now on the inside going into the chicane. I think he's probably gonna, we'll see how this plays out. They go side by side. I think Mimi backs out, gives that position. So Girard now up to 5th. Mimi back to 6th. Then the leaders back behind. Paul Darling a second ahead of Boafia.
Mimi got a great launch coming out of the chicane, though. Is he going to try and retake him down into turn 1? Girard takes that Itasha car down to the middle of the track, defends into the first corner. And Mimi way out in the marbles means he's not able to capitalize with an over-under. They've got more traffic. Armando Edwards just ahead of them in the GT1s. A much braver Girard than what we saw with Mimi. Oh, but Mimi now turns it on and sneaks inside Armando to stay with Girard.
Look at the traffic they've got coming up next, Joe. It's our GT3 leaders.
Once again,
So,
causing them to have to weigh their moves here. Don't really want to ruin the races of these guys. Oh, and Mimi decides it for them as he turns it around 180. And he's stuck there trying to get it turned back around. Now he pulls a bat turn.
So we watch the replay. He's going to lose the position to Daniel Gralti, who now moves up to 6th, and Mimi backs down to 7th.
Lucky strike. HPD was not so lucky through turn 7, but he is able to continue, having lost a lot of time.
He did that right in front of the GT1 leaders, and then you go back up to Girard, who has to negotiate through the GT1s, or GT3 leaders now.
A GT1 lead has to deal with lap traffic. Armando Edwards getting out of the way graciously for those guys. He saw the P1 and P2 and his F3 box, and through they go. Even still, Kiradine trying everything he can to get on top of Paul Darling. Just behind them, Daniel Gralti is coming up, who's got his nose back on the front of his car.
Yeah, GT1 leaders are going to be mixing it up with the GT3 leaders in a couple of laps here.
And a great exit off of turn 5 by Darling. Now Gralti splits the pair of them up through turn 6, over the crest of 7. Very important corner to be able to get the power down. What can Kiradine do? It's not enough. He's going to lose ground. Such is the nature of multi-class racing. One moment, they're within tenths of one another, and the next, the lap traffic splits them, and you have to wait for another opportunity down the line. Meanwhile, we switch to Hackison and Costa.
Yeah, this is interesting because Hackison was definitely pulling away from Costa in the first half of a race, but in the second half of a race it doesn't seem, well, each time he gets close to Costa he either makes a mistake or one of these leaders or a lap car gets in between them and breaks them up. I wonder if he's trying too hard, talking about those mistakes. As Costa gets very close to Mimi, So I think if once Hackerson calms down, he gets his car back under him. Well, now they've got to deal with the GT1 leaders coming right up behind them.
And we got some hungry guys too, as they are nose to tail. Boafia all over the back of Darling. Darling cannot afford. He gets checked up now behind Hackerson.
Emergency.
Sam, I'll tell my guys to do good. You tell your guys to behave.
Oh, Costa doesn't care right now. He'd love all of these guys to wreck.
Paul Darling with an emergency stop to stay out of Hackison managed to woe it up and still hold off Boafia, as they've got Sherburne now that he's going to slip on the inside. He dutifully brakes a little bit early to let them through. This is going to cause the car of Boafia to have to go offline to get through.
Yeah, it didn't help out Hackerson either.
Hackerson got crushed. Just got crushed by that traffic.
Still 16 minutes to go. The traffic could play back into his hands, as we're seeing right here, because Darling gets to the inside of Costa, forces him out onto the marbles.
Yeah, Costa got Boafia behind him. Next car in line is Hackerson, although we've got more traffic coming up. David Williams in the HPD.
Boy, Boafia really wanted to get inside Darling, or Costa, before turn 1. Now he's stuck behind him all the way through the S's through turn 5.
What's Williams going to do in this? He has no one to fight with, so he stays behind, waits patiently. Now he sneaks to the inside of Costa, which is once again going to be costing Loro time. And Hackison starts to gain ground, but his car just squirms under power. I wonder if he shot those tires.
It's a possibility. I think the big winner here, Bill, has to be Paul Darling right now.
Yeah.
Tell you what, let's go up to prototypes. Jason Girard in 5th position is all over the back of Jimbo Pfeiffer. He's been making good on this damaged car, struggling his way through the field, and is looking to break into the top 4.
Working on that's Daniel Benefield, GT1 driver. They just got around McGuinness.
And Ross Booth is off track. We just caught a glimpse of him. That was in turn 5, but meanwhile, let's watch the pass on screen as Girard sneaks through the inside of 6.
Remember, Girard was in that battle for 5th. He got around Mimi, and now he's picked up Pfeiffer.
We don't have to go back to it. That incident with Ross Booth was just him losing the rear end coming through 5 and just barely touched the tires, so no damage to him.
I think we better check on our leader in the PT1s, because Ulmer now, again, I think it was traffic. I think he got stuck up. Ulmer got stuck behind Swirly and gave Simonic a real chance to get there. Simonic is right there. Oh, Ulmer is in a beehive now, a pinata full of bees. He's stuck behind Armando Edwards, and here comes Simonic.
The gap is now 3/10 between P1 and P2. Simonic can see the leader. He's got the bit between his teeth. How aggressive is he going to be? How aggressive is Ulmer going to defend, knowing that he could see another race win slip through his hands? Down into the chicane they go. No attempt from Simonic this time, but he's got the draft to hold him with him. Can he stay on the back of that green and black machine?
And these guys are coming up to the GT3 and GT1 leaders again. They're all going to get mixed up again.
We get all 3 classes battling for the lead all in one spot here.
Here they go, Ulmer by Hackerson.
I think this is Ulmer's Achilles heel. I think he has the pace. He's just been really struggling in traffic. And boy, he's being aggressive now. Whoa!
He has to. That was the car of McGarvey that he snuck by. That's David Tejada who pulls over.
I thought that was Costa, very similarly painted.
Ulmer now sneaking past Costa. This is going to put a bit of a gap between himself and Simonic, who has yet to overtake Loro. Now he gets by. A sigh of relief from the big cheese.
Look at Simonic tuck in behind the GT3 car to get a bit. He tucked right in behind Ross Booth.
Well, they were able to get by the GT3 leaders okay, because those two had spread out a bit. The problem is, for them, the GT1 leaders are close again. Boafia has run Darling back down after Darling had built up a pretty big lead in traffic earlier.
Joe, we got battles in all 3 classes now.
Spoiled for choice with 12 minutes to go. All right, what are our leaders going to do? Buafia now has Ulmer behind him. He waits. Ulmer knows that these guys are battling for the lead as well. Now he can sneak on the inside of Kiridine, put a car between himself and Simonic. Simonic has to wait as they go through the S's. 1-2, 1-2, GT1 and prototypes. Ulmer gets by our GT1 leader. Kiridine is now passed by Simonic. Aggressively sneaks to the inside, down through 7, does not want to lose touch with Ulmer. Simonic now has no one between himself and the leader, and they are able to continue on. Nice job by both classes.
Darling really had not a good exit, or not a good run through 7 there, and Buafia had a good shot at him. That sorts out. My gosh, this is exciting. Car off there, that is Paul Lindsay. No problem.
He stays off track, lets them through.
Meanwhile, brief update in GT3. Something happened to Scott McGarvey at some point in time because he's dropped to 6th in the order after being 3rd early on. Robert Trackman, Sheldon Rosenbaum and Bradley Haley currently round up the top 5 in GT3.
I found McGarvey.
In fact, Scott McGarvey has just retired from the race. Bill,
it was on his lap 35, which looks like it was a while ago. It was right in the chicane.
Let's watch the replay.
Yeah, because he was in 3rd place, and I just looked up and he was down in 6th. That can't have been all of his troubles.
Well, he continues on, so
yeah.
Let's watch it from above. We can stay on this. I'm just keeping half an eye on our GT1 leaders because they are now very, very close. They'll break in if they start to have an accident. Is this all by himself, or did he run into someone here? Oh, that was by himself.
Yeah, I almost wonder if there's more to that story, Joe. If maybe he wasn't involved in a bit of earlier contact, could have knocked out the handman.
And Buafia got into Chandler Rubeck. Let's check the replay as that was happening. Chandler had an off coming through the chicane. Buafia trying to go around him on the incorrect side. Let's go on board Kiridine. Probably was blinded by Darling in front of him. Here we're going to see. No, he had a clear view, just unfortunately anticipated the wrong way for the spin. I don't think he hit him too hard though, Bill. It doesn't look like he's too damaged.
That was tough, and I put no blame on Chandler there, other than spinning the car. That's never good to spin the car in front of leaders, but it's not like he brought it out. The car was going to go that direction.
Yeah, I think that was, as they say, one of those racing things.
Yeah. You get nervous when you got 2 guys coming up behind you.
Well, we've had both our GT3 and our GT1 race for the lead split up a little bit, but GT1s are still relatively close, although Simonic really gives the apex a miss through turn 1, and that loses him almost half a second on Ulmer.
I think it's all going to be about traffic.
I agree. Simonic has been upper mid-pack. He's gotten podiums in the prototype class before. I just haven't seen him have the speed for the top guys. So
yeah, and he's really got some trouble coming up. Not so much here from Morrison that he's working on right now, which is issues. But then he's got some slower prototypes to get around here in a minute. Oh, this is a good battle. And again, look at Simonic get tucked right in behind Morrison to get a draft.
Simonic trying to use whatever little tricks he can. He looks to the inside. He's now playing psychological games with John Ulmer, peeking in his mirrors. Seven minutes to go now on this 60-minute race in the Autobahn Motorcar Group Sports Car Challenge. If you're just joining us, this is round 2 in this series, and already Season 5 proving to be a stunner here on the Global Sim Racing channel.
7 minutes to go. Someone hit the fast forward button.
60 minutes goes quick in this series. Oh boy, Ulmer is just constantly caught up in traffic every time he gets a little bit of a lead. Sean Reese pulls over and lets both of our leaders by. That's Bradley Haley now that they're able to sneak around the outside.
Now they got Sheldon Rosenblum. I think Ulmer's going to get him in a good spot.
Yep, they've hit the backstretch. Easy pass for him.
The Rosenbaum's going to be a bit... Oh, wow! What's his door on Simonek? That was almost ugly.
Rosenblum gave us sorry. I guess he didn't realize that it was two guys coming through.
It's an easy mistake to make.
Rosenbaum's going to be a bit hungry because I think he's been running a bit faster than Robert Drachman, the Ford GT in front of him. Right now, Drachman's the only Ford GT on our GT3 podium, and Rosenbaum just lost a lot of time there letting HPDs by though, so maybe Drachman's got this in the bag.
It's still our closest battle for the lead here.
Yeah, well, Rosenbaum's got to be a bit careful now about Bradley Haley in 5th place close behind him.
Great recovery by Haley. Remember, was bumped all the way down from 10th when he had overtaken 3rd very early in the race. Although, this is definitely not what he was hoping for.
You got car spun coming out of this turn and Leif Peterson. He doesn't seem to be in a hurry to get back out on the track. And that's David Sockrider going off as well.
Let's go, if we could, can we steal away to go to Stephen McGarvey for a minute? This is 3rd place in the GT1s. Now remember, coming up behind him is Swidovich. He's the guy who took tires. So he lost all that time. He has finally run down McGarvey. They got Jason Gerard between them right now. This is a battle for the podium in GT1.
Question is, has the shine left the tires on Wojciech's car? He's been out there now for a half an hour on those things. Has the advantage been erased? Let's take a look at the laps, actually.
No, that's... Wojciech has been coming.
So the advantage remains for Wojciech. That's Alan Hayspec as we ride on board with McGarvey. Hayspec trying to work his way through. He's many laps down, so he's not fighting with anyone. He's being very patient with these two drivers. Meanwhile, I was jumping back up to the lead. It was getting down to half a second, but it stretched out yet again. Ulmer making good use of traffic. Simonek getting held up in the final turn. He has to work his way around the lapped car of Ryan Bird. Oh, Simonek thought about trying to go by Ryan Huff, thought better of it. Right on the roll hoop of Alex. California driver. Ooh. Very close moments on the inside of turn 7 with Paul Lindsay. But the California driver still looking for his first win in this series. Although I don't think he is as hungry as John Ulmer, who, though he's gotten wins in recent seasons, has not taken the championship for multiple seasons. Now down to 3 minutes left on this clock.
You know, and we can report we didn't catch it, but Showhead Schwerley was able to get around McGarvey while we were watching the lead. So move Swidovich up to 3rd spot, Darling into 4th. He's trying to hold off now Schuster, who's coming on new tires as well. Got about 4 seconds. I think Omai is probably, or McGarvey's in pretty good shape.
The battle for fourth in GT3 is on. Rosenbaum has dropped back and is now under pressure from Haley as they come through the final turn. Haley trying to make something happen on the outside of a final turn. Well, that's not going to work in a million years, but right now with 3 minutes left to go, Haley has been reeling Rosenbaum in, and there's definitely going to be opportunities out there for him to pass him.
I'd never say never on that first corner. I've seen some amazing things happen around the outside.
Yeah, that lap he did look a bit far back. These two have dropped a little ways back of Robert Jackman in third, and now if traffic hit Jackman at the right time, they could close in on him. Right now, I think fourth place is really the top spot up for grabs in GT3.
Yes, and our lead battles elsewhere have died down a little bit. Buafia has Hayspec between himself and Darling, can't do anything at the moment. And the gap between Ulmer and Simonic still remains at over a second now.
Sticky cheese, baby.
Is that a relative to the squeaky cheese that you get sometimes? Tell you what, though, Darling in these GT1s, remember how great he was, even though he had Paquin to contend with at the GT3s. He is really coming on strong switching classes this season.
I'm going to say a word we haven't said a whole lot today, guys, and that's fuel.
Yeah, we saw that come into play at Daytona. Granted, it was a longer race and a much thirstier track. But we saw a number of drivers that we didn't expect to have problems with fuel who made last-minute stops.
Got to go to GT1 here. You look at this, Darling. Here it is. Watch this battle. Here is Buafia is right behind him now.
There was a big incident behind them. Not sure who that was. We got to stay on this fight. I'll just give you an update. That was Santana going off all on his own. And I think we're going to be getting the last lap next time by. So they've got one more lap to sort this thing out.
Well, Buafia with a great run through 7.
I'm watching our overall leader, Ulmer, so I'll call out once we get to the end. Let's stay on this battle.
He's coming. I think if this is the chance to do it, if you're going to do it right here. He's got to run. He's going to force the issue. Defensive line from Darling.
Remember, he's going to get one more lap after this down to the chicane. Darling holds on to it the first half, but can he get the exit off the corner? That's the question. Here comes Buafia. Down the hill they go. Does he have the run? Can he make a move to the inside of turn 1? And we'll have to cut away now, unfortunately, because John Ulmer is coming up over the hill. Away we go. John loves these American tracks, and he proves it once again with a win in the prototypes. Let's go back to the GT1s.
Well, actually, Joe, GT3 is about to wrap up here. Lauro Costa is coming out of a final turn, and he will take the win here at Road Atlanta in GT3.
GT1s are just working their way through 5. They're working around Leif Peterson now. Buafia is going to have one more chance at it, and that's after 7. He needs a good run, then get the force, do it into the chicane.
You can tell that Kiradine wants this. He's been trying, I don't want to say desperate moves, but very eager moves, looking around turn 1, as Sam said, very difficult to make. He's got the draft. Darling knows it. Darling goes all the way to the inside. He's going to deny him that line. He's now beside him, side by side, down to the braking zone of the chicane. Can Darling hold him off? Is Buafia going to be able to hold him? No! Darling is going to take the apex. He's got to get a good run off the corner, and he does it. Around the hill he goes. Darling is going to take the second win of the season. Great stuff in GT1s all the way to the end for the lead. And this is why we love the Autobahn Motorcar Group Sports Car Challenge. With that, we got to take a breather here up in the booth. All 3 classes finishing with great races down to the end. Stick around, because up next we're going to have all the upcoming races on screen. As well, afterwards, we'll have the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. So don't go away. Welcome back to Road Atlanta, where we just watched round 2 of the Autobahn Motorcar Group Sports Car Challenge. And boy, during the break, we were all talking about how great that one was to watch. And I'm not just putting it on there. That was fantastic racing. In the end, though, John Ulmer has redeemed himself once again. The cheese stayed on the pizza, and he is at the top of the podium for the win today. Alex Simona definitely made him work for it with a great second place. We need to give Alex some credit there. And Robert Tinsey recovered after being involved in that first turn fracas to take third place. Jason Girard, also a recovery drive for him, moving himself up to fourth despite dealing with some damage. And Jimbo Pfeiffer rounding out the top 5 in the prototypes. Elliot Mimi, another driver we watched have a great little bit of battle throughout the race. He comes home in 6th with Daniel Gralti, the car he was fighting with, finishing in 7th. Ryan Bird, he was 8th, another driver that fell a little bit of victim to that first lap incident. Mark Wilson in 9th, and Tim McLeish rounding out the top 10. Mark Schindel is the driver who came home in 11th with David Williams, another one of the top runners who got into trouble in that first turn incident, who was multiple laps down, coming home in 12th. Sean Reese was in 13th, and then rounding out the prototypes was Alan Haysbeck in 14th. Bill?
Paul Darling lives up to his nickname because, oh my, did he have a nice run. Started 5th in class, is going to come home with the victory. Caradine Boafia had that spin. I wrote him off as being a threat to win, but boy, he gave Darling a run for his money. Wojciech Sjuidovic took those tires and brought it home in 3rd, was able to get around Stephen McGarvey, the defending champion, in 4th position. Troy Schuster also took tires. Didn't work for him like it did for Sjuidovic as he finishes in 5th. Matt Quinn and Billy Smith the second. Not much heard from Billy Smith as Quinn and Smith go 7th and 8th in class, I believe. Ryan Huff, Carter Kundinger, then we go to, after that, if I miss one, Robbie Morrison, David Sockrider, Brandon Postma, Clark Archer, and Leif Peterson round out your GT1. Sam?
Yeah, and you're going to see some GT1 drivers mixed in here with the GT3 leaders. First off, we have Lauro Costa, the GT3 winner, and then you can see GT1 drivers there were Armando Edwards, Daniel Benefiel, and Matt Owens. So let's go to second place, and also Paul Lindsay. Second place in GT3 was Benjamin Hackerson, who led the first half of the race, and then third place in GT3 in the Ford GT was Robert Drachman. Really didn't give him much of a shout out this race. He did a magnificent job to bring it home in 3rd. Bradley Haley and Sheldon Rosenbaum round out the top 5 in GT3, followed by Ross Booth and David Tejeda, and then we have Dave Hill, followed by GT1 car Kevin Santana, Christopher Sherburn, Jim McInnes, Chandler Rubeck, and Scott McGarvey, who had those late issues in his Ford GT. All these drivers back here really were involved in some kind of incident today. Miguel Meyer, Sheldon Woloshin, Pablo Silveira, and then the prototype of Dino Topic was involved in an incident early on. Mark Kudrowski did not start the race.
Up first, we're going to talk to our GT3 winner, Lauro Costa, coming home with the win in that class, and Sam is going to talk to him.
Yeah, we've got Lauro here. First off, Lauro, congratulations on your win today.
Thank you. It's great to be here again. Have another chance to talk to you guys.
Yeah, for the first half of a race, it looked like Haxon had the car to beat. Were you holding anything back, or did you think that he was a bit faster than you in that first half?
I was trying to save tires a little bit, but not much. I really thought he had a better pace than me, at least with new tires. So my only hope was by the end of the stint closing the gap again. But I think I was lucky because I think he had a half spun before the pit stop and then lost time on the pit stop. Without that, I don't think I could beat him. It was really close race.
Yeah, we got that on camera. He really did have a moment coming out of turn 5. Now, I've got to confess, I didn't really pick you for the win today because you weren't up there really in practice. Was it a surprise for you when you qualified in second, or did you just not get a good lap in practice?
In practice, I usually just try my race setup. So maybe the lap was not that great, but the lap was pretty close to my qualifying. So I think it was a good lap. I think one thing that makes people set nice lap times on Praxi is the track changing. I think at the start of the Praxi, the track's a little faster for some reason. It gets hotter with more cars and it slows down, it seems.
Alright, so we talked about the practice, the qualifying, the first half of a race. Now let's get to the second half of a race. When you came out of the pits and you were in front of Hackerson, how hard was it to hold him off for those last 30 minutes?
Oh boy, that was scary. The first part was quiet. The people were given space. With 20 minutes to go, the cones started flying, and there was dust everywhere. I was going on with 2 wheels on the grass to avoid other cars. It was very intense at the end of the race, so it really changed the race at the end. It was really hard to defend, but then I think he had problems with traffic when we got a lot of GT1s, and that gave me a 3-second gap, and after I got that 3-second gap, I could manage the end of the race. I was just hoping it would end as soon as possible.
Alright, last question here, Laura, and then we'll let you go and celebrate. You got a second place finish at Daytona and a win here at Road Atlanta, 2 entirely different circuits. I'm assuming you're thinking about the championship already after solid performances at 2 completely different tracks.
Well, to be honest, I don't even know how the scoring system works, so I'm not really prepared to. I'll go Rosberg way and just say I'm gonna do one race at a time and race for the win or for top 3s when I can. I will go the Rosberg way and not say I'm committing to the championship.
Hey, well, it worked for Rosberg in the long run. Well, we look forward to seeing you back. I believe the next race is Road America. Congratulations on your win, and go celebrate.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
That was Lauro Costa, our winner in the GT3 class. Next up, we've got Bill Zahn talking to our GT1 winner, Paul Darling, 2 for 2 this season.
Paul, I know you got the win in Daytona. This one way more impressive. I don't know if I've ever seen you run a better race.
Everything this season so far has been a surprise. I know I'm not up there in the pace with the other guys in race pace because I'm not the best in the Corvette, but every time I'm just keeping my nose clean, and it seems it works out for me.
Yeah, just a mistake-free race. You know, you spent the first probably 14 or 15 laps just kind of running behind McGarvey and Quinn, just holding your spot. Had a good pit stop. Things worked out for you well there.
Yeah, the first half of the race, I was just keeping steady and saving fuel and tires, and after I was actually anticipating taking tires in the pit stop, but after I was looking at the lap times with the traffic, I figured it wouldn't be worth it, and it turns out it worked.
Yeah, well, you picked up a spot when Schwidovich took tires, so that helped you out. You come out in the lead after the stop, and then you got Boafia giving you everything you could ask for there on those last couple laps.
Oh, absolutely. He was clearly immensely faster than me. I mean, he made up 6 seconds in 8 minutes, I think it was at the end. I think he was saving fuel early on. That's the impression I got, but that's why he didn't just blow by me earlier than that. But I'm very lucky there.
Yeah, he had a good stop. He didn't get you. I thought he had a shot at you the penultimate lap, and then that last lap, you took that defensive line down into the chicane. Were you worried at all of going side by side through that chicane on the last lap?
Very worried in these cars with the lack of ABS that my usual Audi has. That was definitely intense going down. I thought he'd take it deeper, but he didn't.
Well, you can't do any better than 2 for 2. This one seemed like a lot more work than it was at Daytona. Congratulations. Keep it going.
Thank you, guys.
Paul Darling, Joe, your winner in the GT1s today.
And a great battle that he gave us at the end. Another driver that had some good battling that took the win today, that would be John Ulmer. Well, whether it's putting weights on it, stapling it to the dough, or maybe putting glue in the mix, whatever he did, the cheese stayed on there, John, and you took P1.
In the words of Roy Jones Jr., y'all must have forgot. Told y'all before, Road Atlanta's my track.
And we mentioned that during the broadcast. You like these American tracks, and it certainly seemed to prove true. What about that first incident, though? Did that affect the way you drive the rest of the race? Did you take it easy, seeing many of your main competitors lose it in the first turn?
Oh yeah, that took a lot of strategy out of my race. You know, I was really kind of worried about what was going to happen once we started getting mixed up in traffic with 4 of us, really 5 of us, because Alex was there too. Being so close in pace, you know, I knew it was going to be a lot of I don't want to say shady moves, but there was going to have to be some slowing some people down behind you as you enter the corner happening to stay in the lead in this race.
All's fair in love and war, that's for sure. And we have to ask then. We heard you talking about that maybe you got a speeding penalty in the pits. Is that what backed you up into Alex in the second half?
No. He was joking because I was, when we were going down pits at the end of the race, I just went driving by him. He was saying that's a position penalty. No, he was just getting it done in traffic better than I was, and every time I would pull out a little bit of a gap, you know, he'd come right back. So I was keeping a close eye on him. I mean, I wasn't going to let him pass me, I can promise that. But I was definitely worried about getting caught at the wrong moment because he had all the pace to be there. So it wasn't like I could just drive off from him at will.
Now, it's early in the season, so we've heard a lot of drivers say that they're taking the Rosberg method of one race at a time before considering the championship. It's been a long time since you've taken home the crown in this series. Are you thinking about maybe trying to run for it this year?
Yeah, you know, you got to take them one race at a time, but, you know, it'd be foolish if you're not looking forward thinking, where can I what tracks can I really capitalize on that I know that I have the pace at to, what are my most important, stops on this journey to get to the top of the charts. But, and then you always have to go back. It's going to take one race at a time because sometimes tracks you don't expect to do well on, you do. And sometimes, like at Daytona, tracks you expect to do well on, you don't. So it's still a lot of chance out there,
Well, one last one before I let you go. Up next is another American track. It's Road America. Do you fancy your chances there?
I do. I won the race last season there. I think it was my last win. But I don't have the outright pace there that Tenzi and Gerard do. And I'm imagining David's going to have it. Paquin, if he's back, will definitely be up there. And Simonic, you can't forget about him because he's come a long way in the last few seasons since he started racing with me in the official series, and in here, I've seen huge improvements in him. So, he's going to be knocking on the door of these guys really quick. He's no joke. He's got pace. So it'll be interesting. Road America, I expect to be a dogfight.
Yeah, we've been watching Simonic as well. We've been impressed with his performance as he continues to adapt to this league. And if I recall, that win was when you had an injured arm still and managed to come home P1. So that's a good sign for maybe you having good chances there. Thanks for coming to talk to us. And again, congratulations, John.
Thanks, guys.
That's John Ulmer, winner today in the prototypes. Up next, it sounds like we'll get one more in, and that is Ben Hackison, who finished second in GT3s. And Sam, did I understand that you're going to be talking to him?
Yeah, we've got Ben Hackison here. Ben, congratulations on the second place finish. However, commiserations, I know it's not the P1 you probably thought you had in the first half of the race.
Yeah, overall I'm a little bit disappointed, but at the start of the day, if you offered me second, I probably would have taken it.
Yeah, what was the key there? Because you pitted about, I'd say, 5 minutes before Costa. Did you get held up in traffic during that time between yours and his stops?
Well, when I came out of the pit, somebody spun across the pit lane, so I had to brake and avoid that, and then I got attacked by loads of traffic on that lap, so I think that's what cost me. But at the same time, I had a half spin, I think like lap 16 or something, which cost me about 5 seconds, which probably cost me the win instead of traffic.
Yeah, we saw that huge moment you had in the first half of the race. You did a whale of a job to keep the car on track. Now, in the second half of the race, you came out of the pits right behind Costa. I thought, perhaps you would have had something for him. Were your tyres damaged a bit from that earlier slide, or did Costa pick up a pace, in your opinion, in the second half of the race?
I think he was more consistent than me. I didn't actually get a chance to go for it because every time I got close, traffic got in between us. And there was one point where I lost like 2 seconds behind him from traffic and then never got it back.
All right, the last question. I know it's 4 a.m. in the morning over in England. What are you doing up at 4 a.m. in the morning on on Tuesday over there, I suppose?
I'm a university student, so I can sleep when I want.
Sounds like a great plan. Well, I assume we're going to see you back next race, Ben, and hopefully we'll see you get a win again soon.
Yeah, as long as I can keep staying up till this time, I'll be around.
All right, well, thanks for putting on a great show today. I know you didn't get the trophy you were after, but it was fun to watch, and we look forward to seeing you back.
Thank you.
All right, that was Ben Hackison, our second place driver in the GT3s. Obviously a very hardy fellow, being able to race that late and be racing so well. However, we're going to close up today here at Road Atlanta, the Global Sim Racing channel. Of course, we want to thank the Autobahn Motorcar Group for being the official sponsor of this league and making this thing happen. And thank you to John Ulmer for being the organizer of the league and doing a lot of work behind the scenes to put this show on. Thanks to the software and hardware that we use for our broadcast. You can see those listed on your screen. And additional thanks to our musical contributors, Eric Ekholm and Casey Lalonde, whose music you can also find at the websites listed. Thanks to the team today, Bill, Sam, Amjad, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC and Soup and Sandwiches, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com along with archived races and upcoming broadcasts. We're also on Twitter at GSR Channel and Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel. Next race is going to be Road America. That'll be Monday, March 6th at 9:15 p.m. Eastern, 2 weeks from now. We also have upcoming races for other series on screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. However, until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.